Yes, good morning and welcome. You're watching Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV. It's that time when we take a look at the headlines this morning. And in studio to help us do this, we have Bwana William Kabogo, Governor Kiambu County. Karibu sana Mushima.
Asante.
It's good to have you in studio. Of course, we also have Barack Muluka, political analyst. And of course, there's an empty seat next to me because...
literally. That's why I'm laughing.
Yes, we reserved it for Governor Josphat Nanok from Turkana County. Of course, you'll understand how far Turkana is. So it explains why he's late, but he'll be joining us in a short while. But we'll continue nonetheless looking at the headlines this morning. Of course, on the front page of the Standard, who has the numbers? And that's what everyone is talking about. 19.5 million new voters, according to the latest register as compiled by the IEBC. Of course, this one is yet to be... audited and cleaned up, and the IBC is yet to officially come out with the numbers. I think they'll do that probably today. But of course, people do have the listings from various regions, and the numbers and the assumptions thereof. We'll be looking at that in a short while. Of course, on the front page of the Daily Nation, exams now free for private and public students. The most interesting headline on the front page is politicians in plot to bring back Prime Minister's office. Yeah? And also on the top of the Daily Nation, Itumbi's Facebook post derails doctors' pay talks. And I'm sure the governor will have something to say about this because that complicates matters for the counties as well. And if we could just start off...
Mostly it's difficult. You're looking at papers.
Yes.
It's always difficult to understand where papers sometimes get stories from. So we can assume what you're saying, Itumbi derails. We can assume it's gotten from somewhere. But I don't think the issue of doctors is an issue to do with a person. This is a very serious problem, and we need to handle this problem with care, because you've seen doctors have been really adamant that the Begain agreement that was signed in 2013, I think early 2013, needs to be honored. You know the sort of issues it will raise with the entire public service is that everyone else is waiting, that if this is honored, then the entire pay for public service will have to be restructured. Is Kenya going to afford? That's the question that probably we need to ask ourselves. And I don't think we can afford. I speak for Kiambu. We have a bloated wage bill. Almost probably 65-70% of our expenditure goes to maintaining the payroll. So really, the doctor's issue is a sensitive matter that needs to be dealt with a lot of utmost care.
Yes, and it's this kind of headline that when you talk about utmost care, this is a communications expert. You are a communications expert, Barack Muluka, and the strike enters its 78th day today.
Very unfortunate.
Yes, there's so much that has gone behind these talks, so much we understand there's a gentleman's agreement that nothing should be leaked from the talks. Just for... In terms of perception, in terms of creating confidence even among the doctors, remember, given the history, people have been to jail and back, and surely then a Facebook post can actually derail the talks.
You see, this is not just another Facebook post. They usually say that when certain people speak, you must ask yourself who they speak for. This is Dennis Itumbi. He is in charge of electronic media for State House, and so when he posts that, we cannot take it lightly. We must take it with all the gravity that it deserves. And I also don't agree with His Excellency the Governor when he says that the doctors are asking that the CBA be implemented fully. I have heard them very loudly and clearly to be saying that it should form the basis for negotiation, because this is a document that was signed by a government officer. If they made a mistake, they must own that mistake and then say that this is going to form the basis for further dialogue. They are not saying that this is what must be implemented. I
don't see our disagreement there, because really you're saying the same thing. That it be a basis for discussions.
Yes.
But not that it must be implemented.
Yes.
Because even if we say, just for argument's sake, that it shall be implemented.
Yes.
How will it be financed?
Okay.
That's the other question.
In terms of financing,
because I need to rope in the latest entrant into the panel. As we continue then with the news review, of course, Governor Josephat Nanoka from Turkana County has joined us. Karibu sana. It's good to have you. We do understand Turkana is a bit far, that's why you are a bit late. Now, of course, we started off our news review this morning with the strip on the front page of the Daily Nation. Itumbi's Facebook post derails doctors' pay talks. Medics are furious at leaking of negotiation details by State House officials. This State House official. That story is also on page 11, I think, of the Daily Nation. Yes, and it's been given Itumbi's Facebook post scuttles talks. Negotiations between doctors and the Ministry of Health stalled yesterday. The government official leaked details of the talks despite a gentleman's agreement to maintain secrecy. Now, of course, this complicates matters. This is the same question I put to Bwana William Kabogo. Complicates matters for the county governments because you want to see this issue resolved as soon as possible. I do understand most of the counties still have issues with the nurses and other health workers in terms of allowances that are yet to be paid, that are in arrears. Now, the doctors' strike, it has involved so many different people. Then a Facebook post derails the talks.
Thank you. I think all this that is we are seeing now being shown on the newspapers are sideshows. They're basically sideshows from the people not basically involved in this matter.
Yes.
And I think there's already an agreement that was signed in CBA agreement 2013 when it was being signed by the union, the doctors' union, together with the Cabinet Secretary Health. We in the Council of Governors challenged where we were not involved. Yes, correct. We are controlling most of the health sector. The agreement was signed. Promises were made, salary increments promises were made. I think we have to bite reality that indeed we have a problem. If we have no money, it is good to say we have no money, but we have an agreement with the doctors. We must strike a deal and be able to move this country forward. Otherwise, we have made a lot of progress. All counties have made a lot of progress in the health sector. And if this strike continues, then we're going to be seeing a reversal of all these gains. I can only urge all the stakeholders, both national government and the Council of Governors and Doctors' Union, to sit together and strike a deal that satisfies them, but also ensures that the Kenyan residents, the Kenyan citizenry, get the best medical services they deserve.
But the rider there is you are talking about negotiations.
Yes.
You cannot negotiate if you have a standstill position that you have taken. It has come to the table willing to give and willing to take.
The converse,
and if that is available in the negotiations room, then soon we should see some white smoke. But if the position they have taken, what I understand the doctors have done is they've taken, this is what we want, and the other side is saying this is what we want, then we see disagreements between the minister and the PS. That's not helping. And if they cannot do it, then leave it to the Council of Governors.
We are with very senior politicians here, so you have to apportion time. Otherwise,
do not worry.
I'm worried. The converse of this is also true, that you cannot negotiate with the sword of Damocles suspended above your head, and that the doctors have been pushed into a desperate corner. Each time we are seeing the courts telling them that you must come back by such and such a time with an agreement, otherwise we take you to jail or we take you back to jail. Now, that is not a basis for dialogue, that is a basis for coercion. One side has already been strengthened and given the opportunity, therefore, to dig in. I think we must accept these realities if we expect to see something good coming out of this effort.
Okay. Now let's move on to another headline. Of course, the doctor strike enters its 78th day today. We still await to see what happens after this particular headline. After it hit a snag because of a Facebook post, probably there'll be progress.
Is that for real?
That's
one other thing. I mean, you see what's happening in America. Things are being run on Twitter.
They have not disowned it.
All we do on this panel is look at the headlines. So we will go by the headline that's there. Let's take a look at another headline, and it has to do with the numbers. Now, these numbers are not officially from IEBC. Yes. We do understand they're officially releasing the numbers today, but I think the Standard probably have an inside source, because they're saying as IEBC unveils a final roll of new voters, the analysis suggests that Jubilee and NASA are stuck in a statistical dead hit in August poll that could force a runoff. So who has the numbers? Yeah. Total numbers, 19.5 million voters. That's the new roll. Remember, before this mass voter registration, we had a voters register with 15 million voters. Now, after that, means we have just increased it by about 4 million new voters against a target of 6 million. So now 19.5 million. They've done an analysis, and I think they're basing this on how regions voted in the last election. That's in 2013. So NASA has been put on one side in blue, and counties like Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, Tana River, basically all the way from the coast, eastern areas, Turkana, western, and Nyanza on one side, Jubilee on the other, Mandera, Isiolo, Tharaka Nithi, all these counties from Rift Valley and central Kenya. Now the analysis is this, and let me read it directly from them, that if I could start from here, assuming the ruling and opposition coalitions each retain the counties they won in the 2013 presidential vote, and with similar voter turnout margins, the Jubilee coalition could get about 8 million votes, 8.3 million votes. That's 49.45% against NASA's 8 million votes. That's 47.73%. The assumption is that the opposition coalition holds, that's the assumption the opposition coalition holds until polling day, meaning that none of these political groupings has the required 50+1 as things stand, according to this analysis. Let's start from this side. Do you think this is a correct analysis?
Yeah, I'm of a different view. In fact, the current voting patterns and voter registration exercise does not actually reveal how people are going to vote. Basically because the parameters that were used for voting in 2013 are completely different now. And one of the things that I believe voters will be voting to is to look at the pledges and the promises each of the political coalitions that are in the race have made to Kenyan citizenry. But also there are also issues that are going to be regionalized. Issues that surrounding corruption, issues surrounding environment, protection of environment, issues surrounding natural resources like oil in Turkana, like land in the coast and many other parts of this country, are basic issues about the cost of living. This, I believe, these are issues that Kenyans are going to vote for, to decide in between whom they are going to trust for the next 5 years.
Just that Kenyans have really changed in the last, it seems to suggest so, that in the last 4 years or so, that we've really changed, and now we're looking at the pledges and the manifesto of parties. But Barak Muluka, is that the case, that now we'll vote according to the pledges of this, that these politicians make to us?
I think one factor will remain constant, that is ethnic persuasion. That when the politics of ethnicity come to the center stage, then all other considerations are secondary. They don't really matter. However, I do take issue with this interpretation here. For a start, you cannot assume that the numbers remained constant in the previous register and that they have now been topped up with recent registration. People have died in their millions. I have no doubt about that. So you cannot assume that what was there remains. And even in the earlier register, we were never quite clear what the numbers were like. We had a situation where there was a multiplicity of registers. We don't know which one was correct, which one was not. And these issues are being raised today, and somebody is playing a game of levity with them, that we'd like this register to be properly audited and the correct numbers agreed upon. I have seen that the Minister for Interior, Cabinet Secretary for Interior, gazetted some time back that he's the only one to give permission eventually on who can access the proper figures and therefore determine the correctness or otherwise.
Well, we do have the figures and they're laid out here on page 4.
As you correctly say.
And you look
these
at
are not
and looking at Kiambu,
official,
the governor is here.
Official figures.
New voters, 220,896 new voters, Kiambu alone.
We expected more.
That gives you 1.16
We expected
million.
More. Yes. We did. That was an 86% turnout. I mean, in terms of what we expected.
Here they give it 91%.
Yes, but yeah, plus or minus. But you started by saying if things stay as they were,
yes,
then. But that's not how things are today.
So you disagree?
Connectivity in electricity is Kenya-wide. Road network is Kenya-wide. I mean, Jubilee government has worked. So really, the blue side that you have read, a lot of those votes will come to Jubilee.
Will move to the red side.
Yes. If it's about performance, if it's about development. But of course there are challenges.
Governor, and it's the same question I asked Barack Muluka. You seem to suggest that this time round, Kenyans will look at the development record of politicians and that's how they will vote. Our history has been...
I'm saying Kenya is a growing nation. It's a growing nation. It's a nation amongst the family of the world. And Kenya is not going to stay as a tribal country for the rest of time. You and I should be promoting Kenya to make it a universal state where it doesn't matter where you come from.
The governor doesn't believe.
And you know, as we speak here, I do believe. I mean, I never speak anything that I don't believe. When we sit in the Council of Governors, I said here earlier before we started, that sometimes you can't even remember who belongs to what side of the divide.
Yes.
Because at the Council, we don't look at things in relation to what geographical part of Kenya you come from. It is from what perspective in terms of services that you would deliver to your people. Nanok is worried about development in Narok. I am worried about development in Turkana, sorry.
Yes,
I'm worried about what happens in Kiambu. And if that's the vision of every other leader, worry about services besides where you come from. Of course, people will argue we were marginalized before, so we need to be given special preference today. Others are saying, oh no, you're marginalizing us today because you think we were not marginalized before. All these things should be swept under the carpet and move on.
Governor Nanok, your colleague said that the list here, the lineup here will be much shorter.
Essentially, number one is majority of Kenyans are going to vote on issues.
Yes.
Why do I say so? Because devolution has made a very big impact out in the rural areas, such that people are now viewing leaders in a different way. They are viewing government in a different way. I think the critical issue here is not about whether Jubilee or NASA are going to get the numbers, because that decision will be known on 8th of August this year. The critical issue is about the credibility of these numbers. Are these numbers correct? Are these numbers being cleaned? And then the audit of these numbers becomes so critical for us to be able to say, now we have a register of voters that can be used during election. And equally, it's about IBC, because I think we've been running away from the critical issue. And I think we should be able to bite the bullet. Is IBC ready to hold these elections? Are they prepared? Are their software equipment up to date? The only thing we're hearing is that even the software licenses expired 3 years ago. If this is then true, then it looks like we are very far from being prepared to be able to hold a credible election.
Indeed, NASA has written to IBC, that was as late as yesterday, demanding to be told, to be given a report on IBC's preparedness to run the elections. But back to these numbers, and now the governors here seem to suggest that the voting patterns will change. Probably at the county level, yes, because that is an ethnic voting block, that in Kiambu you're working with one particular community, in Turkana you're working with one particular community. So probably at that level people tend to look at the development record of the politician. But when it comes to the national outlook, don't you think that the voting will still remain the same, that it will be tribal?
You see, even at the county level, in certain counties, matters of development records will not matter.
They don't matter.
I have no doubt that in Kiambu, for example, Governor Kabogo has done a lot of good work. But there is Baba Yao, who seems to be enjoying a certain kind of leverage, and he came to Kiambu specifically as a project. That is something that Governor Kabogo can only ignore at his greatest peril. That when that question comes up of establishment and who is the establishment's candidate, he has got to stay completely awake. That will come into being. In other parts of the country, questions of local ethnicities will come into play. You will go to Meru, for example, and you will find that the question of the Imentis and the question of the Chogorias and whoever's is going to come into play. Questions of this kind of ethnic divide, therefore, do play themselves all the way to the county. They are going to come into the picture, and they are certainly there at the national level. When you look at the formations, which the assumption is being made here, they are ethnic in nature. But question of saying nobody will get 50%, the competition is basically between two strands of competitors. And if you divide this thing in the middle, you are basically maybe saying that they'll get 50% each, because somebody must get 50%. I don't believe that the fringe parties are going to get anything upwards of say 1%.
2% probably. Now, you mentioned something about Kiambu and the politics in Kiambu, and both governors here, surely you face your own different political struggles. For example, on page...
Governor Nanoki is safe. Governor Kabogo is endangered.
On page 6 of the Daily Nation.
I think my brother here is speaking from a point of not knowing exactly what's happening in Kiambu. I don't foresee any problems in Kiambu. We don't have a project. I'm not a project. Baba Yao is not a project. It's called
Baba Yao.
He is not anybody's project.
Kiambu is
if you have seen of late, they have joined up, I think 5 of them. Now the point is to try
against you,
to remove me from office. And then I think they were hosted here, or one of them was hosted here a couple of days ago, and they said they coming together is just to remove me. It's not going to be possible.
So that's the kind of struggle you have.
That is the only struggle.
Yes.
I mean, but project-wise, work-wise, we have done enough to warrant me to come back. 60% plus.
Do you think yesterday's acquittal of your opponent on charges of incitement bolsters his campaign? Do you think...
it has no effect. It has absolutely no effect.
Okay.
Remember, I was also acquitted a couple of weeks ago.
Did it have any effect on your
Not
campaign?
really. I was charged as a person. Yes, I was not charged as government.
Okay.
What you do in your personal life, or what you speak, you shall be held responsible for it. Choices and consequences.
Indeed. Now, let's move on to the other side of the country. And there's a headline here on page 6 about what's happening in Turkana. And Jubilee legislators from Turkana yesterday dismissed claims of an assassination plot against co-principal Raila Odinga when he visited the county on Friday. Senator John Munyes, who's looking to replace you as governor, of course, and members of parliament, Protas Akuja and James Lomenen, said it was the opposition leader and Turkana governor Josphat Nanok security teams who shot in the air to disperse Jubilee youth making their way to the rally. Now, this is your struggle in Turkana.
Thank you. In fact, the Constitution of Kenya allows freedom of every leader who seeks political seats to get out and talk to the masses. A week ago, the Deputy President and the Jubilee Brigade in Turkana were visiting. They visited several places in Turkana over 4 days. And they had peaceful rallies, peaceful political agendas. So last week on Friday, we also had our occasion together with my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, to visit a number of places in Turkana. And we went to a place called Katelia in Turkana East, which essentially is my stronghold, because I represented that constituency as a member of parliament for the Greater Turkana South, but also now as a governor. And essentially, there are a number of youth, and we began the baraza, and people talked, elders were speaking, and when the last elder was giving us issues about drought, about insecurity, because this is an area that is critically affected by insecurity, then the shooting began, throwing of stones began something like 500 meters away, and then firing from the other side. And of course, when people heard the bullets, they scattered, so we had to leave the place. Essentially, what we've established and has been confirmed is basically 7 relatives of the Member of Parliament for Turkana East were actually the ones who were shooting. And that has already been recorded with the police station in Lokori. So essentially, what I see MPs doing here, they're just trying to do a cover-up. They were neither there, they don't know the issues, they're trying to throw it into politics, but this is a very, very serious issue that is criminal, being shot at leaders who are so preeminent in this country.
Because this is
what we are asking is that these members of parliament looks like they know much more than they are revealing. The only thing that can help is the police to conduct proper investigation of these incidents. Whoever will be found culpable, action should be taken. And there is no way I can be seeking sympathy from my stronghold. It's impossible.
You did it. You stage managed the attack.
How can I be seeking sympathy from a stronghold? And I challenge these guys. If they will get 5% of the Turkana votes on the 10th of August, they should be able. We come together to the television here and tell you that they have no numbers.
The other thing now, away from the attack on Friday, is that Senator John Munyes has actually picked your current deputy as his running mate. How does that affect you?
What we did when we entered into the NASA coalition, and there were several parties, in the spirit of the coalition, I took a Ford Kenya candidate to be my deputy. So essentially what that deputy has done is to follow his boss, and they have moved together. But I can tell you, 80% of the Ford Kenya officials and supporters that were with Munyes are with me. So I've essentially destroyed that group. So what if Munyes is unable to be able to deliver as a senator for Turkana? Then how can he be able to deliver as a governor? It's impossible.
I have very little to say about Turkana. I'm not ignorant of the rest of the country, I mean, besides Kiambu. But the message to the leaders, let's cool down the temperatures. This country is greater than all of us. Leaders from both NASA and leaders from Jubilee. Let's step one step backwards, retrace our steps and where we want to take this country. I mean, we can't have chaos every other 5 years because of political competition. We should be able to give each other space and allow Kenyans to vote. That's all I'm saying. That is my message to Turkana, to 47 counties. That's what we need.
I need your analysis on the situation both in Kiambu, politically, in Kiambu and in Turkana.
We need to score.
You wanted to say something just before that. You need to say something about Kiambu.
Governor Kabogo is in Jubilee, but he's an old friend. So he's OTT. So sometimes if you ask me to comment about Kiambu, I can't comment.
The two governors. The two governors know that I am not just schooled, but thoroughly schooled. They also know for a reality that the governors have got solidarity when it comes to looking at national issues as governors. Basically because devolution in this country has been under assault from day one. Even the Senate, which is supposed to be the principal custodian of devolution, has sometimes gone for them quite unfairly. All barrels are blazing, and you can see that very many senators are trying to offer themselves as candidates for governorship. Not so much because they don't believe that good work is going on within the counties, but basically because they see other incentives. And away from the reality that the governors will usually come together as a committee that is mutually endangered, not just as individual politicians, but as representatives of devolution. It's also true that they have not been spared the contradictions that politics of ethnicity in this country have forced upon all of us. That many times, and this is my informed interpretation of issues, when they get out, some of them are forced to keep quiet over certain things. Governor Kabogo, I can say this without a fear of doubt or contradiction, that there are times when you may not agree with certain things, but it does not seem politically prudent to go out and speak about them.
But silence sometimes speaks also.
Sometimes silence also speaks. But when we go back to Turkana, because I must say something about Turkana, there are two things here. Number one, that about half of the deputy governors are either going to try to offer themselves as candidates because of feelings within themselves of maybe relative deprivation or whatever it may be, and ambitions which are quite in order. But the other thing about Turkana is that we are missing the point. Who are these people who are shooting? Where have they got these guns that they are using to shoot? Are they licensed guns? Shouldn't the government be asking where these people got these guns instead of playing diversionary politics and saying that it was so-and-so who shot faster in the air? Are we being told now that some people have got the latitude to walk around with guns in the countryside, and that if you shoot in the air, then they have got a legitimate cause to shoot at you?
Wow. Legitimate questions those are, and we need to take a break, but I like that description by Barack Muluka that the governors are probably acting from this point of being mutually endangered species, and that's why they're friendly to each other.
Let me tell you, it's not about that's a comment. I think that's way off.
You know, you should be giving credit to the Council of Governors for being able to work for 4 years without a division of issues of party. I mean,
gentlemen,
ask none of
fully agree.
let me tell you. Let me tell you how many governors are in the Jubilee coalition. He wouldn't know.
He wouldn't know.
He wouldn't know.
Let me tell you, I think you are unfair to say that we're just ganging up because of a certain purpose. We were elected on a platform of service delivery, and when the law established the Council of Governors as a forum for coordinating counties, we decided that we are governors of Kenya here to deliver service. And for the last 4 years, our national agenda addressed through the Council of Governors has been to address issues which we feel will support devolution and delivery of service on the ground. And this country must appreciate the role governors have played to be the only institution that has stood firm for number one institution to stand firm for devolution, followed by the judiciary. And basically, even the future of this country on politics,
and the CRA,
watch out. Devolved governments are going to decide the future of the country.
Indeed, isn't it nice when brethren sit together in harmony and peace, like the governors are doing from both sides of the political divide? No wonder Barack Muluka describes them as mutually endangered. But we'll continue this conversation after the short break. Far Breakfast continues.
We're mutually